Billy Spackman, Black Country Extra, with our third very special programme. It's Alcohol Awareness Week, and we're here with David and Declan and his guests. So I'll pass it over to David.
Thanks, Billy. My name's Dave, forever an alcoholic. Just like to start by saying a big thanks to yourself and everybody here at Black Country Extra for giving us this opportunity to come along and help raise the awareness of AA and specifically Alcohol Awareness Week this week. Alcohol Awareness Week is it's not something we run. It's sort of championed by a charity called Alcohol Change, but it's supported by the NHS and all the other sort of alcohol agencies. So shortly going to introduce one of our members who's going to share the story with us, but I'm going to ask Dec to read the preamble, which is something we read at the start of all of our meetings, and it basically tells you very simply what AA is, what it does, and I guess what it doesn't do. So, Dec, over to you.
That's great, Dave. Thank you. I'm Dec. I'm an alcoholic, and this is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope for each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
That's great, Dec. Thanks ever so much. Can I now get our guests to introduce themselves, please?
Hello, yeah, I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello.
Thanks for coming along today and to share your experience, strength and hope with us. Really appreciate it. Can I ask you to start off by giving us some idea about your background, family life, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So I normal family. You know, had a brother and two parents that were at home. My father was a very hard-working man, and my mother was very house-proud. Growing up, I look back now and at my childhood, and I can see that it was, a really decent childhood. But my perception of my childhood was, quite different. When if I'd have shared my story with you it was 6 months ago, I may have had a different perception of my childhood then. But I didn't particularly enjoy my childhood growing up, and I was a very sensitive child. I carried this feeling around with me, and I didn't know what this feeling was, but I now know today that was fear. And, I feared everything, always worried about what people thought of me. I was petrified to go to school in case a teacher picked on me and asked me to speak in front of the class, which is quite ironic considering what I'm doing today. But yeah, that just goes to show the change within me. But growing up, I had I was quite chubby, and I suppose I had a greedy nature in regards to food. And I'm sharing this because it is part of my journey. But I had as I say, quite a greedy child, and I was bullied at school. So my father, he was very controlling man. There was no alcohol to point to in our house. My parents were completely teetotal. They didn't drink at all. But to rectify the problem of me being bullied, my father was quite, very strict in regards to my food, and there was lots of comments passed about she's put some weight on, she needs to lose weight, and he hired a running machine at the age of 6 and made me go on it for an hour every night. And because his answer was, let's get this weight off her and the bullying will stop, because he couldn't control the kids at school, what they said or did. Let's solve the source. So from an early age, I remember lots of comments about how I looked, my appearance, and that had quite an effect on me. I did feel that I had to look a certain way in order to be loved. My father never showed me any affection, because, not that he didn't feel it, but, that's just how he was. and I deem that to be, you know, I don't look right, and he doesn't love me, you know, and I grew up really feeling unworthy of receiving love. And at the age of 12, I was starving myself and binging really badly. So, you know, no drink at this point. But what I did do from a very young age was I learnt to control how I felt with food, and that served a purpose. From the age of 12 onwards, I was excessively exercising, I was obsessing about things, and I was constantly looking at my appearance in the mirror, thinking, you know, if I can just have this, if I can just be that, if I can just lose a bit of weight, my father will love me, and people will like me. You know, as I say, I was sensitive, so I always felt at school that, you know, I felt like people didn't like me. I was worried about what people thought all of the time. And I can see now that was because I didn't love myself. So my first drink was 13, and it was around a friend's house, and we emptied the contents of his cupboard into a bottle, and she drank a bit, and it was vile, because as you can imagine, a concoction of stuff. I drank the whole bloody thing because it made me feel different. I felt confident. It lit me up, you know, and obviously I was sick at the end of the night because I'd consumed way too much and spoilt the night. But, you know, I remember that feeling when I took the drink. But because I had this big obsession with food and calories, I stayed off the drink, you know, from 13. It was all about the exercise and about restricting the food that I had. But it was all controlling the way I felt. You know, it was boys. I became codependent on boys. You know, I felt like if I wasn't with someone, I just couldn't be on my own, if I'm honest. So I'd finish with a boyfriend and I'd have another one lined straight up. And from 12 onwards, I kind of, when I went to school, I didn't particularly, I'd say, concentrated hard at school, but I did want to be a vet, and my dad didn't want me to move away from home, so he persuaded me, you know, in his controlling way, to do to go into a bank. So I did. I went into banking because I was trying to get his approval constantly, keep him happy. And when I was in the bank, I worked really hard because I had this idea that if I got my own house, I'd be happy. If, you know, I had the children and, you know, the perfect family, I'd be happy. And you know, what I didn't realise was my happiness was always contingent on something or someone. You know, and it was never, I never achieved any, I never found any joy in anything, but I was striving to get, so I saved, and I bought my first house at 18, and then, you know, it was a house that needed a lot of work doing to it, so I strived at work to get the money to do it. No alcohol again, you know, all to that point, and then that relationship broke down. I decided I wasn't happy in it. And I thought, if it's a relationship that's not making me happy, and I can say that at the age of 24, 23 was when I started using alcohol to control the way I felt.
So you said, you mean that I think your first drink was at 13, so yeah. How did that progress in your teens and up until 24? So you didn't really... I was too consumed with calories. Right, with the calories.
Yeah, so yeah. I stayed off it, you know, I wasn't... Right. I never really drank. I never really went out because I was so striving so much to get. And so, I was lucky in that respect that I had some, I suppose, respite from the drink, because when I found it...
So at 24 then you started, was that when your real journey in alcohol
Absolutely, started? Yeah. That's when I'd finished with the partner, and I'd got the house and everything, and, because I still wasn't happy. And so I remember taking that drink, and I remember going, wow, this... I don't need to feel like that anymore. That feeling I'd been carrying around with me all of those years, that I now know to be fear, went. And I that was the time at 24 when the penny dropped that I could use alcohol to control the way I felt and take away the feelings. And I used it alcoholically from that point. I didn't think I was, because I wasn't a morning drinker. And so my idea of an alcoholic was a park bench drunk.
Sure. Yeah. So how did that? Did you drink more than your mates? When did you realise that you were drinking more than?
I always drank more than my friends, and I always was the one that was the mess at the end of the night, and I always wanted the party to continue, and there was never enough alcohol for me, and it'd be I thought a blackout drinking was when you passed out, but now I understand now there was a lot of blackout drinking. I'd drink and I'd do things with no recollection whatsoever of them. I'd have to be informed, or I'd find things and I'd think, where did that come from? How did it? Who put that there? Or and then that people would tell me about the text message that I sent out, and it was always a mess. When Debbie drank, there was carnage. And my drinking progressed from that point, really. And, it is a progressive illness, and it certainly did progress. And I was still striving for everything, and because I didn't look like a typical alcoholic, it never dawned on me for a second that, it creeps up on you. And it never dawned on me that I was an alcoholic until my father suggested that he didn't suggest, he bloody told me.
Whoops.
Sorry about that. That I'd got to go to AA, and so I landed through the doors of in 2005. That was my first experience with AA, and what I found when I walked through the doors was people seemed happy, and I was told to listen for the similarities, not the differences. But I was quite early in my drinking career, I'd say, at that point, and I did not believe that I was an alcoholic. I didn't want to be there for my own.
I think there's a sort of misconception. It's that sort of park bencher is most people's perception.
Absolutely.
But you sound as if you were probably like me, a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
People who can hold their jobs down, and don't lose everything they've got yet.
Yeah.
Dave, can I ask a question for people who might be listening?
Sure.
Is it very, because yours is very different to the ones that have come and told the stories, really. Is it worse or different, or if like you come to it almost like it's a brick wall and bump, you start drinking, whereas all the others have been fairly gradual from a young age, and does it affect people differently that way?
I think
that's quite intense, isn't it? Not to be like super fit and then think, oh, hang on a minute, I'm going to start drinking now, bump, and immediately you start wanging it down your wazzing. And
I think over the years that I've been around, I've heard hundreds and hundreds of different stories. Everybody's got their own journey, and people get there. We've had people who don't start drinking till they're 50 odd. And might only do for a couple of years and realise that they can't stop. Or people, that we've had shared before that start at, 12, 13, and it gradually progresses until until they get here. So it's very different for everybody, really.
Yeah,
everybody's got their own story. All right, Deb, tell us. You didn't really want to go to AA. It was your dad that said, did he drag you along?
I wasn't there for me. I was there because I was trying to keep him happy, and I didn't have that acceptance, that belief that you need to know that I was an alcoholic and I could never drink safely again.
Had you tried stopping before? Your dad must have made comments prior to that.
I used to wake up and look at myself in the mirror and go, Debbie, what are you doing? I looked dead behind the eyes and I'd say, I'm absolutely not drinking tonight. I would swear. And if I took a lie detector test, I would have passed. I was adamant that I wasn't drinking, yet, by 5 o'clock that evening, I'd be off around the shops to get 2 bottles of wine. And, and I'd end up drinking that. I had a partner that worked away. And so I'd put the kids to bed because I'd got kids at this point, and again, that was me thinking once I had my children, I'd be happy. And I was always seeking something. But a partner that worked away, 2 kids upstairs in bed, and all I wanted to do was to to drink the loneliness away. And, you know, it stopped doing its job, the alcohol did, long before I was willing to accept that I was beat. And, you know, sadly, I was one of the people that did lose everything. And, you know, I went to AA, I went a few times, and I heard things, you know, and thank God that he planted a seed, because I was able to go back to AA in 2000. Well, I'd been around the rooms for quite a while, but I wasn't doing any of the suggestions. You know, I wasn't paying enough attention, because you do have to work hard for your recovery. But, you know, anything that's hard work is worth keeping. And, you know, I value my recovery today so much because of how hard I had to work to get it. But, yeah, when I went to AA and I could see people happy, and, you know, and I could see that it was possible, that was enough. You know, from my very first meeting for me to go back. But I went back, I actually, that partner of, you know, 15 years, the 2 children, the big house, I achieved it all, but I was still drinking. And, you know, and I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. And, you know, I had that head that would not shut up. And it was either projecting the worst case scenario, or it was dragging stuff up from the past. And I carried a lot of anger around with me. I was full of resentments, a lot to do with my father, you know, and I was blaming everybody for my drinking, and I was in victim mode.
So your first visit to AA, you really didn't want to be there, so that you just carried on drinking. That didn't work. You weren't working the programme.
I tried a bit of controlled drinking for a couple of years. And,
how did that work out?
That didn't go too well.
Funny that, eh?
Yeah, I ended up down the school picking my son up after I'd had a drink.
Yeah.
What's that then, Deb? What's controlled drinking in terms?
Where you try and, you know, I tried to limit the amount of drinks that I had. I tried to change the type of drink that I had. You know, I tried self-help books. You name it, I tried it. Every method possible to stop, but it always ended in the same place. You know, if I was controlling my drinking, I wasn't enjoying it. If I enjoyed my drinking, I didn't like the consequences.
Yeah.
And there were the consequences were coming thick and fast. And I couldn't understand why I was having all these consequences, and I'd swear off the drink and I'd go 3 weeks. And my head would send me back out to the drink. It would tell me, maybe it'll be different this time. I won't drink this sort of drink. And you know, I know today that when I put one drink in me, it sets off this phenomenal craving that just screams for more. And I have a mental obsession with alcohol. I was always thinking about not drinking it when I wasn't drinking it, thinking about where I was going to get the money from, where I was going to hide the bottles. I mean, I became such a manipulative a person and a liar. And, you know, and I can see that today. You know, I was judging myself on my intentions, and everybody else was judging me on my actions. But I was in so much denial about my drinking. And,
that's something we hear a lot, isn't it? People, you know, for my own story, you know, I didn't want to be there. I was never an alcoholic. I was just a big drinker. I admitted to that. You know, where I come from, it was the done thing. You know, it was a man's thing. You know, you had to be able to hold your booze. But it's
alcohol was a dirty word in our family. Alcoholic.
Yeah.
And you know, my mother really did not want me to carry that label, and they didn't want me to go. My mum didn't want me to go to AA. You know, but she didn't want me to drink the way I was drinking. And you know, in the end, that partner of 15 years, I took one drink too many, and you know, he'd had enough. He'd put up with all the excuses, put up with me blaming everything and everyone for my drinking, and not looking at me. And you know, I was too scared to look at me and take responsibility for anything, because that meant that I had to deal with the feelings that came with it. And I you know, that one drink cost me everything, because I was turfed out, landed on my mum and dad's doorstep at the age of 38, You know, because he couldn't cope. He didn't want me doing what I was doing around my children, which is absolutely, you know, spot on.
What did your children know? Or
My children were very young. I'd got, you know, at that particular time, my daughter was 5 and my son was 8. My son was finding empty bottles around the house. You know, whilst I never, you know, physically hurt them or anything like that, I was never there for them emotionally. I was emotionally vacant myself. And, you know, and I tried to be I tried to be the best at everything. I tried to be the best mom, you know, by having the house spotlessly clean. That's what I thought the best mom was. You know, having the tea on the table, a cooked meal every night, putting the kids to bed on time, baths, routine. I was very big on routine. But, you know, I'd want to drink while I was doing it. And you know, and for that reason, you are emotionally vacant for your children. And so, did it affect them? Absolutely. And, you know, and they were aware at the times that I'd pick them up from school maybe and had a drink. But, you know, I had so many expectations of myself, being perfect at everything, wanting the job, wanting the big house, you know, I couldn't maintain it all. And because I couldn't maintain it, I was constantly in this battle with myself of disappointment with myself, you know, and the guilt and beating myself up. My head was an absolute wreck. And drink was a solution to that. But, you know, when I landed on my parents' doorstep, I was in a world of pain. Look what you've done now. You've lost your kids. And also my parents were worried sick. You know, and I couldn't see what I was doing to anybody else. You know, because of my own pain and misery. I just couldn't see the impact that I was having on my family around me.
should we play your first record, Beyonce? Yeah. So is this significant? Because that music's significant in any walk of life, really. So
absolutely. It talks about running in this track. Running, can't run from myself anymore, and you know, and that's what I was doing for so long. I remember playing it, you know, in my garage where I did all my drinking, and the four walls around me were caving in on me, and you know, I just hit a point where I knew. I had that knowing that I was an alcoholic, that acceptance, that I couldn't run anymore. And I knew the only way that I could see working around me was when I went to AA and I could see people were happy. And so, you know, I'd play this track and I'd realise that, you know, it's time.
Yeah. Let's have a listen to this then. Beyonce.
Brilliant.
Change the way I feel, the way I feel. I'm standing still. Nothing else matters now. You're not here. So where are you? I've been calling you. I'm missing you. I got you.
If I lose myself, I lose it all.
If I lose myself, I lose it all.
That's great, Debbie. Thanks for. I think before the meeting you were telling us that you got into AA, but you really didn't want to be there. I think you were bouncing in and out of it. When did you get to the point that you got it? You had that real acceptance that you were an alcoholic and that you couldn't drink.
Well, after I'd been I'd kicked out of the family home and I landed back at my parents', I was drinking alcoholically. You know, I was taking the morning drink. I was constantly getting myself in a right mess, and I lost. My father had a freakish accident and fell down the stairs, and a vase sliced him wide open through his heart and lung, and he bled out in my arms, and coupled with losing the children and the long-term relationship, the family home, you know, the lot, and I hate to say it, but I had drank drove, you know, on occasions, and I lost my licence, rightly so, and so everything kind of had gone, and all I'd got left was my mum, and I was in so much pain with the lot that, you know, alcohol was going to be my solution. I did not want to feel. And, you know, I couldn't see, you know, any normal person would have perhaps, you know, looked at their mother and thought, oh my word, she's lost a husband of 40-odd years, and looked to the brother and tended to the kids. How are you dealing with losing your grandfather? I couldn't deal with any of it. And, you know what, they say it's a self-centred part of the illness. You know, I was so consumed in my own pain that, you know, I was unable to see other people's pain. And I drank terribly, you know, alcoholic, and my mother had been diagnosed with cancer, esophagus cancer, and so, you know, there was a lot going on for me. So there were a lot of, you know, factors that kind of enabled me to carry on drinking for a long period of time. And while my mother was dying, I was getting drunk. I was trying to do the best I could to care for her. But again, you know, that I was emotionally vacant. I wasn't able to give her the empathy that she needed, you know, because it was all about me, and you know, my relationship was very strained with my brother as a result of that. You know, my children were struggling with it, and I was just constantly blocking everything out. But my mother passed away. And so I continued to drink alcoholically for another year, and to say I threw myself some massive pity parties, you know, drinking in my garage, and it was absolute hell. You know, when I took a drink, it stopped doing its job. It didn't take away the pain; it amplified it. And, you know, and when I took a drink, I didn't know when my last one was going to be, so I was always getting drunk. And, you know, I was in a really, really dark place. Like, I remember it, 19th of December, just before Christmas. I wasn't having my children for Christmas, so I was going to be spending my first Christmas on my own without my parents and anybody around me. The only friends that I'd got were AA friends. And they'd had to let me go, because they were watching me kill myself, and I wouldn't do the things that were suggested. And so I felt very alone at that point, you know, and I remember dropping to my hands and knees in my garage and screaming out, trying to pull my own hair out my head. There'd been so many suicide attempts, and the truth of it was I didn't want to die, but I just didn't know how to live. And you know, and I did not want to have my children think that their mother didn't love them enough to stay here, and that was the saving thing for me. But I remember dropping to my hands and knees in the garage and just screaming, you know, somebody help me, somebody help me. And in that moment, as clear as day, in my head just came, accept that you're an alcoholic. You know, I could see when I took my last drink that started a week before that I only intended to drink the little gin and tonics that were wrapped up under the Christmas tree. And the actual truth of it was, I was drinking neat vodka, you know, blackout drinking for a week, and so, you know, and I knew that I was responsible. I was the only one that was going to save me. Nobody was going to come and save me, because I've been codependent on everybody around me. I become very childlike, and, you know, because I was in victim mode, and I was putting the responsibility on others to save me. And so when I did have that acceptance, and, you know, and I became honest with myself about my drinking, and I open-minded, you know, I knew that there was a solution out there, because I could see people in AA around me, you know, achieving sobriety and living a decent life.
Do you think that was, I mean, we talk about, it's not a religious programme, AA, but it's a spiritual programme. Was that a spiritual experience in your garage?
Absolutely. Yeah. I you know, I'm not religious, and I'd heard the word God in AA, and my God was a punishing God. He took my parents from me, you know, he'd made all this stuff happen to me. You know, when I realised that I was accountable for all of that. I was accountable for everything that I'd done. And that's something else that came to me that night. I was accountable for the things that had gone wrong in my life. I'd been protecting alcohol, and alcohol was no longer the solution. And you know, I believe that was a spiritual moment, because I have not, from that moment, the 19th of December, and bear in mind, I had nobody around me, and I was spending Christmas on my own. For this alcoholic to stay sober is a miracle.
Yeah.
Something happened. I've not thought of taking a drink since then.
How long ago was that, Debbie?
That was 19th of December 2019, so
Wow.
I'll be 2 years this year on the 19th of December.
So, tell us how your life's changed then since you had that acceptance and
Yeah.
you really got yourself involved in AA and...
It's been an absolute journey, you know. When I arrived in AA, I call it, you know, I joined AA, because all the times that I'd been before that, I was just putting my bum on a chair, you know, and that's when the work started. I got a sponsor, and, you know, my pride, I didn't want to ask anyone to sponsor me. And a sponsor, you know, it's just someone that takes you through the steps of AA. But I didn't want to ask anyone, because, you know, I'd been bouncing around the rooms for so long not doing it, that I thought if I asked, I was frightened somebody would say no. You know, it's that rejection. I was terrified of being rejected. And so I asked someone, I got a sponsor, I looked at step one and realised I was powerless over alcohol, and that my life was unmanageable. And, you know, when I could see that, I could see the wreckage of my past, as that was my best evidence. And I surrendered. I absolutely surrendered. I knew that in order to recover, I had to surrender. I had to throw in the white towel and do the things that were suggested. And, you know, and I knew that I couldn't expect things to come back to me in my time. Because I tried to control everything all my life, you know, and as I, you know, when I tried to control stuff and it didn't go my way, I was having that mental battle, but I just let go. You know, I felt so broken and so desperate that I just couldn't think about anything else. All I could think about that day was get to a meeting and just stay sober. You know, and just do it today. And that's what I did. I did it just for one day. And then the next day I got up and I repeated, and I kept things so simple. And you know, and the days really did mount up. Before I knew it, I was picking up that 1 month coin. And, you know, and I'd spoke to my sponsor and discussed my step one in depth. And I stayed on my step one, which admitted that I was powerless over alcohol for a bit, because I wanted to make sure, you know, because of my history of getting off the drink and then picking the drink up again, I wanted to make sure that this time something was different. And, you know, and I could see something was different because I felt different. And, you know, and my people must have seen the change in me before I seen it myself. Because my ex-partner started to the kids over more. I'd have them on a weekend, but the day came when he'd let them stay over. You know, these little nuggets, I was making progress, but I wasn't asking for anything. It was all coming to me in the right time. And you know, and I started to enjoy having a sober life. And, you know, the miracle for me was that brother that couldn't stand me, well, couldn't stand what I was doing because I was, you know, really being a terrible daughter. He asked me, you know, to look after his child. And so, you know, that for me was immense. That was such a turning point in my recovery because it showed me, oh my word, he can trust me, you know, because nobody. I'd made so many false promises. So yeah, you know, that came in my recovery, and I'd made some amends along the way. You know, I couldn't make amends to my parents, and I carried a lot of guilt for that. You know, but I know they'd be proud of me today. And you know, and I just try to be the very best version of myself today. And you know, it is progress, not perfection. You know, some days I can do everything wrong, but I just don't pick a drink up. You know, and then there are other days where I'm absolutely flying, and I have to manage, you know, my emotions. The best solution for me is connection. I have to connect with other alcoholics. I have to pick up the phone and get the contents of my head out. You know, and that's how I managed to stay sober. You know, by one day at a time, talking to people, you know, going to AA meetings. You know, I do phone service now, and I absolutely love giving back to this fellowship, helping other people. It's that hole that I had in my, we call it a hole in the soul, you know, that emptiness that I felt, that self-hatred that I felt. I'm able to practice self-care today. You know, I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and not think I need to, you know, look a certain way to be loved, because I have some love for myself. And that's, you know, what this programme's done, and that, you know, it radiates out to the people around you. And so, you know, the trust came back, and my children stayed overnight, and then before I know it, you know, I'm having them school holidays, and then before you know it, you know, I'm getting fed up of having them, and I want to push them back to the dad.
Let's hope they're not listening to this.
Yeah,
then.
Drive you to drink.
No, but you know, and it's absolutely been a beautiful journey.
Wow.
I have had some amazing times in recovery. I have made but you know, we're all just like a herd. We're doing it together, and that connection, I need that. You know, and nobody out there understood me. You know, my brother is very different to me. He couldn't understand and grasp why I was doing the things that I was doing. The ex-partner couldn't. But when I walk in the rooms of AA, I immediately know I'm at home.
I think that's the key with AA, isn't it? Because you know, you walk into a room of whatever 30 people, and everybody's been through,
Absolutely,
to a greater or lesser extent. Some people go all the way down there. Some people don't lose anything, but the mindset is they understand how you feel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because they've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, haven't they?
You know, because I was such a strong-willed person, I had so much willpower to do, you know, to starve myself and you know, lose weight and exercise excessively.
But willpower didn't keep you off the drink?
No, and it absolutely couldn't. It did not work with the drink. No. And because I had so much willpower, I kept going back and having another go at it. Yeah. You know, I didn't want it to beat me. And the day I started to recover was when I threw my hands up and say it's beat me.
I think we just, you know, willpower, it just doesn't. I mean, I stopped drinking hundreds of times in my time, but I could never stay stopped. Never stay stopped. Stayed sober for months, going back a few years, but they always started again until I got to AA.
I think the important thing for me was when I sobered up this time and the days were mounting, I didn't want to be a dry drunk. I didn't want to be a miserable drunk, you know, white-knuckling. And thankfully the obsession of alcohol was lifted from me that very day that I surrendered. And, you know, and so I've not had to battle with that mental obsession. But I've had to deal with the carnage of my past.
Yeah.
And I've done that through that connection with people. I've made my amends, and and that's what the programme of recovery has enabled me to do, is to turn my head around. So I no longer always think to the same, that negative thinking. I can have days like it, life things come at you, and I have to learn how to deal with them, because I used alcohol to control my emotions from an early age. Now when I get those emotions, I have to feel them. And they're new to me, and so some of them can be very scary, and so by having that connection and able to talk to somebody else about it, somebody else can turn my thinking around. Absolutely, yeah.
Let's play your second track, Stormzy.
Yep.
Blinding track. So where did this come from then?
Well, this was I think this was released as I'd surrendered.
Oh, right.
And like I said, I can't believe that I've not had that mental obsession to drink. It was lifted. I didn't white knuckle. I didn't, I wasn't trying not to drink. I think because I had that full acceptance, and because there was some spiritual awakening, that was removed from me, and so I felt very much like I was blinded by grace.
Oh, what an introduction.
Wow.
It's going to get a job on here.
We don't need you, Billy.
We don't need
you.
Here we go then.
It's all about you, Black Country Extra.
I'm blinded by your grace. I'm blinded by your grace, by your grace. I'm blinded by your grace. I'm blinded by your Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fix me. I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fixed me. Now I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. One time for the Lord, and one time for the cause. And one round of applause, one time for Fraser T. Smith on the chords. I think we got one. I stay prayed up, then I get the job done. Yeah, I'm Abigail's youth, but I'm God's son. But I'm up now, look at what God's done. Nah, real talk, look at what God did. On the main stage, running around topless. I phone flips, then I tell him that we got this. This is God's plan, they can never stop this. Like, wait right there, could you stop my verse? You saved this kid and I'm not your first. It's not by blood, and it's not by birth. But oh my God, what a God I serve. Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fix me. I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. Lord, I've been broken. Although I'm not worthy, you fix me. Now I'm blinded by your grace. You came and saved me. I said a prayer this morning. I prayed I would find a way to another day. I was so afraid till you came and saved. You came and saved me. And the rain was pouring 'cause the sun faded away. Now I'm in a better place, no longer afraid. Blinded by your grace, you came and saved me. I said a prayer this morning. I prayed I would find a way
Stormzy, what a track. Declan, you're going to give out all the information before we get back to Deb about how people can contact AA.
Absolutely, Billy, no problem at all, yeah. So anybody who's got access to the internet, if they just do a Google search for Alcoholics Anonymous UK, that will take them onto the national website. And inside the national website, it's got a bunch of information. It's got the where to find, which if you type in your postcode, that will also give you local areas to where you can get to your meetings. It's also got the phone number as well, which is anybody who's got pens close to hand is 0800 9177 650. That's 0800 9177 650.
Great stuff. So, David, last bit with Deb then.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dec. Debs, I think you're sort of living proof that there is a satisfying and enjoyable life after drinking. You know, your life has improved beyond recognition. What would you say to people out there that are listening to this that are thinking, maybe I've got a bit of a problem, am I? Maybe I'm drinking too much. Maybe I need some help. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say, you know, get your bum on a seat in AA. You know, you've got nothing to lose. You know, there's always the bar waiting for you. You know, if your drinking's costing you more than the price of the drink, then maybe you need to get yourself to AA, you know. And if you take the first drink and you don't know when your last one's going to be, maybe you need to, you know, I think you need those together, you know, because some people have a drink and don't drink again for months or weeks after. But I had a mental obsession with alcohol. You know, I was always thinking about not drinking it. So yeah, you know, going to AA, oh my word, you know, it was nothing like I imagined, and it has provided me with a solution to my head, you know, because I learnt that the alcohol was just a symptom of a bigger thing, and the bigger thing is a spiritual malady, so I have a sickness of the mind, you know, and I can see that today. I can see that all my thinking was what used to send me drinking, and, you know, by having a solution to that thinking, I no longer need to drink and my life gets better, you know, and so for anyone that's having a really rough time with alcohol, you know, get yourself to a meeting and just have a listen, you know, and if you hear any similarities, you don't have to be an alcoholic to turn up at AA, you only have to have a desire to stop drinking. And, you know, I know a lot of people out there that have tried to stop drinking on their own and it's not working, and their life's unmanageable, and, you know, probably need to be in the rooms of AA.
Do you think there's a lot of folks who are drinkers and probably are alcoholics, but they just, you know, they just don't realise it? Or
yeah, I think it's for everybody to make their own mind up, really. And usually the key is what Debbie just said. If it starts costing you more than money, you know, in terms of relationships. I mean, the theme of Alcohol Awareness Week is alcohol and relationships, and, you know, there's this sort of quip in AA that says alcohol's a great remover. You know, it removes relationships, wives, husbands, houses, licenses. People go to prison. You know, removes the children. You know, so people have, if they do come along to AA, all we ask is that they come with an open mind and just listen, and they make their own minds up whether they're alcoholic or not. They might not be. They might just be a big drinker.
A big drinker,
yeah. They might not be alcoholics, but.
And in terms of your kids, have you been able to explain all that journey to them? And I suppose it's made them stronger people in a way.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
Non-judgmental and in a way,
They I'm very honest with my children, completely honest. You know, they know I'm here this morning doing this.
And I think they must be incredibly proud of you, really.
I made my amends to my children, and it's a living amends, you know, I make a daily amends to them. But I had a really beautiful chat with them, you know, and my children, all they want is for me to be happy, you know, and they know that I spend a lot of time in AA now through choice. I want to be there, and, you know, I help a lot of people. I'm able to pass on my experience and my strength and hope to people now. and my children know that that's what gives me my self-esteem. You know, that's what makes me feel good about myself. When somebody turns around to me and says, "You really helped me last night. You stopped me from picking a drink up."
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's all we want for each other in AA. Everybody just wants us to get well. I don't want anything from you, you know, and there's people willing to help. You just have to be willing to do the suggestions, and, you know, the suggestions are get to a meeting. And, you know, my children are proud of me. I know they are. And, you know, and those relationships that were so fractured when I was drinking, you know, the ones that are left, the only thing that they're beautiful today. You know, I get on brilliantly with my ex-partner, and the only change, he's not changed. You know, the problem was me. I'm the problem. You know, I've had an altered attitude, and that's what I believe the programme of recovery does. It alters your attitude, AA, altered attitude. Yeah, you know, it's been... I've had some amazing times with people in AA. You know, I'm able to experience, like that, it's been spoke about before, that belly laughter, that real belly laughter. And I never knew how to be happy before. I never knew how to laugh. It was all faked.
Great.
I was all fitting in to what I thought everybody else wanted me to be.
Well, let's give it a blast out on Tina Turner then, shall we?
Can I just say a big thanks to you, Billy, for inviting us along again, and a massive thanks to Debbie for your share.
Cheers, Debbie.
And your openness and your honesty. It's been a real pleasure listening
Thanks
to
for
you.
having me.
Thank you.
I think every one of the stories is what I get from it. Every one of the stories is totally different.
Yeah.
Everybody's had a different journey, and hopefully that will bring a different kind of awareness to people, and maybe just make them think. Anyway, we've got another one tomorrow, haven't we?
Yep.
So we're going to go out on a stonker. It's Tina Turner, and we'll see you tomorrow. Ta-da a bit.
You know, every now and then, I think you might like to hear something from us. Nice, easy. But there's just one thing. You see, we never, ever do nothing. Nice, easy. We always do it nice and rough. But we're going to take the beginning of this song and do it easy. But then we're going to do the finish rough. The way we do Proud Mary. And we're rolling, ooh, rolling, ooh, rolling on the river. Listen to the story. Left a good job down in the city, working for the man every night and day. And I never lost 1 minute of sleep, and I was worried about the way that things might have been. You know that big wheel keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling, rolling, yeah, rolling on the river, the river. Cleaned a lot of plates in Memphis, popped a lot of change down in New Orleans, but I never saw the good side of the city until I hitched a ride on the